Now, the most trusted name in radio, Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the airwaves.
And it is I, the mayor of the airwaves. My guest is David Hunter. And how are you, former U.S. Diplomat?
Good to be here. Happy New Year.
The cards and letters keep coming in. What do you have that commie left-winger on your show for?
Yeah.
Anyway, do your friends listen to this at all?
Yeah, and
do they think you're lefty?
No, but
yes, they do. I bet you they do.
No, but they disagree, and
they disagree with you.
Quite a few do.
I'm in company.
No, which is fine. I mean, the reality is
that you can take that.
There's nothing wrong with a respectful disagreement. I present my facts. I have well-documented facts. If you don't want to agree with those, that's your choice. I mean, this is a free country.
I'd like you to go over the documented facts.
Yeah. Well, I went over them
of the last election. They say they have video of these two ladies, moving the votes 3 times into a machine. The same bag.
Yeah. I think one of the guys, Giuliani, has been sued major
by them. Yeah,
by them,
dollars.
By them, and
doesn't
also
mean they're ever going to get a dime.
And also the ballot companies that make those election machines. They sued Giuliani, and
But that doesn't prove.
It does prove because they went through a court. They went through a court, and the evidence that there was any fraudulent machine or fraudulent movement.
Do you think that Giuliani or Trump can ever get an honest trial? We are debased. We are losing America. Look, no matter what, even no matter what's happening here.
Yeah.
This is just a bunch of baloney. Trying to say Trump's not been convicted of anything. And yet you've got Colorado saying we're not going to accept him to be on the ballot here. You've got that lady from Maine saying not going to be on the ballot. He hasn't been convicted of anything.
Well,
that's not the way we work.
Well, that issue is
ruining America.
That issue is going to go to the Supreme Court for a decision.
That they can get away with it without even in the old days, the righteous Democrats.
Well, we don't have
to be some righteous Democrats.
Wait a minute. We don't have a federalized election system. We have federal election, for president, but each state runs its own election and
if we wanted to have index cards that we had to fill out here, we get to do it.
They could. The state of Florida.
You know how much money we've spent in this little stupid tank town on machinery and stuff?
Yeah,
millions and millions.
Right.
Kay used to be in charge.
Yeah,
and then
Leslie Swan's
been here.
Right.
And
well, anyway. There's a lot to talk about internationally today, so let's. This has been a break for the holidays.
Yeah.
So our audience.
What's amazing is how people behave. Towards me, or don't even return my calls now that I'm not on secular radio. They don't realize about the app and the people that we're collecting on these websites and YouTube, which is huge. Okay, so they think that I don't and they don't return the calls.
Yeah.
If something should happen, which it very well might, where we have a huge listenership, even locally as well as regionally and nationally, back again.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I was warned of this before when we were at the top show.
Right.
And how people out said, you don't know, Bo Jody would say, they're just being nice to you because you're going to. They're not that way nice. And somebody said, well, they were nasty out at this meeting. So, well, he or she never treats me that way.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. But you know what I was thinking of doing? And please spread this rumor. I'm thinking of writing a tell-all book, but it'll be a tell-all book. Before all the people die that are part of it, because the young people don't give a hoot.
Yeah.
They're going to go, who's Ralph Sexton? I have nothing bad to say about Ralph Sexton.
Right.
But I'm saying, let's say Ralph Sexton, who was the Sexton family here.
Right. Right.
They own the Ocean Grill, still that family. They own own a bunch of stuff. They own the patio. They own the restaurant out west of town.
Right.
I guess they sold that. They were going to put a.
Well, that's a valid.
Do you know they got $1.2 million for that property, and then they decided not to knock down that property, and the government sold it to a guy in town here for $100,000. They paid $1.2 million for it, and then some guy in town here.
You're talking about the patio.
No, I'm talking about the place out west of town.
Oh,
okay. It was a Chinese restaurant.
Okay.
So obviously he, and then they just said, well, it was publicized in the newspaper that nobody reads anymore.
Yeah.
Publicized in the newspaper, so everybody could have
Right.
come to the auction.
Yeah. Well, when you have court auctions, that is always a a debatable issue. Is a court auction advertised? Are people aware of the auction? You have to be pretty smart to be involved in following court auctions because they're sold at the courthouse steps. That's the technical term for it.
You know where to invest now. I was just down in Port St. Lucie for a meeting last night.
Okay.
An all-men's meeting. We were discussing economics. And, we've been talking about, did you see that this new storage place opened up on 60? It's huge. It's a multi-million-dollar unit. Mm-hmm. They built a multi-million-dollar unit, same company, up on US 1.
Right.
And if you don't know it, there's one behind the CVS on US 1. 3 of them. So they spent
These are like private storage for rich people.
And they go up
they're about $200,000 a piece for the and you can store your car there.
I don't know if that's it.
Oh, okay. And these are hurricane proof. That's what they've been selling. Motor House is one of them, I think. And it's a place to store your cars.
But anyway,
and things.
They know they're coming.
Yeah.
And now we know that what's the street over there? Oslo is going to have its own exit. So for the few people that might want to invest, here's the secret. Remember the mayor told you, go buy now.
At Oslo. Yeah, at Oslo. All right. Anyway,
enough now for world affairs.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Okay, so Secretary of State Blinken's 4th trip to the Middle East. But we wanted to talk about the other guy, didn't we?
Yeah, Lloyd Austin. Let's talk about him first.
And I think they're picking on him because he seems to be a good guy.
Well, I agree. I think he's a good guy.
But is it political that the Republicans want him out?
I don't know.
The guy has cancer.
In a way, I see some parallels. I don't want to open the door too wide in the parallels department, but I see some parallels to this Harvard president Gay that was sacked recently. She was forced out because of her failure to properly.
Did you see what she said when she was confronted about the Israelis?
I did see what she said.
It depends on the context.
It depends on the context.
Screw her and make she go to hell 10,000 times.
Well, that of course is what you call a academic answer.
A bigot.
No, it's an academic answer. Okay, it says in the context of or in the framework of.
In other words, you can go and say these things you want against the Jews, but unless you actually try to eradicate the Jews, then you're not guilty of hate speech.
Well,
as a black lady.
Well,
what's the matter? There's no heart.
The issue here, if you want to, I'm not going to go deeply into it, but I'll just brush over it. The issue here is technically what is the definition of genocide? Now, there is currently in court tomorrow at the International Court of Justice a court case that's going to be heard against Israel, charged by South Africa, who is a apartheid country that achieved independence from the white racist government.
Nobody's alive hardly.
Anyway, I'm just trying to explain.
These young people.
I'm trying to explain about.
That means they know nothing.
That's why I'm trying. I'm trying to explain about South Africa has filed the case, and South Africa is not seen by definition as being an anti-Semitic country. It's not like an Arab country that's Muslim and so forth. So it has a.
The Ethiopians are Jews. A lot of the dark-skinned Ethiopians.
Well, some are. There are some, and some of the Ethiopians that are Jews have moved to Israel. Okay, that's a different.
There's only 7 million Jews in USA. No, 6. I was corrected.
6 million in USA. That's right. That's 2%. 2% of the population,
or less,
2% or less, and I'm going to talk about that later on today because what I want to emphasize is
why have time memorial? Why is everybody's always been against the Jew? It kind of really glorifies God because it shows you why would you hate this little band of what do you call this? You haven't been in Israel, but you know about the things I've seen when I was there. The Bedouins.
The kibbutz.
Oh,
the
Bedouins.
Yeah, Bedouins.
Weren't the Jews like let's just say a wandering Jew?
Well, they were wandering after
Bedouins. By the way, in case you're listening, when I went to Israel, you go out into the desert and you come to 4 corners, and there's a little town made of tents, and they got 10,000 sheep and 10,000 goats. You come there the next day and you go, we must be lost. This doesn't look the same. The whole town's gone. They're Bedouins, and they move. They
migrating
forever.
Yeah.
They go to where the grass is green. They let the sheep eat it up, and the goats. Yeah. And then they move along. It's really quite extraordinary.
Yeah, and because it's such a dry area, they can't graze very long in one area because
they build these cities in the desert sun. In the winter, maybe one thing was cold, but imagine.
Well,
hammering those things into the stakes to get those big tents up.
Yeah.
And
Anyway, there is, if you go back,
that's a lot of work for all intents and purposes.
Exactly. All right. Anyway, let's go back to your question about Lloyd Austin.
Yeah, and seems like a reasonable guy, but was it wrong for him because we're in this very tenable situation? Is that the right word?
Tense.
Intense and tenable.
Yeah, I would say tense, like dangerous, threatening. We're at what I call the cusp of entering into several military conflicts. Therefore, the Secretary of Defense is a key player in making decisions about, do we escalate? How do we respond? If we are going against the Houthis, are we going to attack the mainland of Yemen? That's an example of the kind of decision-making.
The papers, they just found out when the Jews went down into the tunnels that they're planning jihad. And at all costs, they want jihad. And so if you really want jihad, then, I mean, if you and I agreed that we want jihad, hold on, then why not take an atomic bomb and just blow up America, blow up Israel? We know they're going to counterattack, blow us up. But then, and Mohammed will build a new world.
All right. Well, you're making fun of a major religion.
I'm not making fun, but I'm saying that why don't they do that?
And you're probably mischaracterizing a lot of things, including what jihad means. Okay. In the Muslim world and the vocabulary,
it means to annihilate the
no, it does not.
No, it does not. What do you call them? Fidesz? What do you call them?
The infidels.
Infidels.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. In fact, it
means to get rid of Fidel Castro.
No, there is a term called a jihadi.
Jihadi,
who is a holy warrior. That's the term for it. It's like our Christians going over to the Middle East.
How come you're not a professor?
Well, because I don't need to be. I don't need the money.
It's not about money.
Yeah. Anyway, let me explain
Bob Dylan
this.
said if he wasn't famous in this day and age, he'd be a professor. It'd be fun. Do you think I think about the money?
Yeah.
Why do you do this?
Yeah.
You don't need the money here.
I want the
because you ain't getting any.
I want some of the audience out there to learn a little bit. It may put a glimmer in people's minds about some of these things and how complicated they are.
Yeah.
As I said, a jihadi is a holy warrior. A jihad is a holy war. That's what it is, a holy war. Now, technically, in the terms of Islam, you can have a holy war as an internal war against evil or your disposition, which is in wandering off the path. You can understand that concept. So it's kind of like a Christian who's fighting a war against his own evil impulses. That would be called internal jihadism. That's the concept and the term for it. There's also external jihadism, which is where you go out and kill the infidels. Okay, so the two types of jihad, just so you know that, in the Muslim definition and vocabulary. Anyway, you mentioned that they found comments about fighting jihad. The people that are fighting, for the most part, in that area in Gaza, the Palestinians, they are not inspired by ISIS. They are not.
Well, look what ISIS just did in Iran.
Well, ISIS.
Why is ISIS blowing up Iranians? I thought they were on the same team.
Well, that is of course an interesting question. You're talking about when they were having the funeral for Soleimani. That what's called the 4th anniversary of the death of Soleimani. Soleimani's the one that Trump's team took out by a drone when Soleimani was in Iraq.
Yeah.
And he's an Iranian. Soleimani was the head of the Al-Quds force, which is the chief of the...
and he was known to be a very bad guy.
Well, he was... Al-Quds force is kind of like Hezbollah, and it's kind of like Hamas. It is what you call a paramilitary organization.
What does para mean?
Paramilitary means it's outside of normal military. But just
so whose authority are they under?
Well, that's the question. They're under their own authority, but often under the direct command or support by the supreme leader, like Ayatollah Khomeini was. So the Al-Quds was reporting to Ayatollah Khomeini, but not to the prime minister of Iran.
By the way, spiffy jacket.
Well, thank you. This is actually, I wanted to mention, this is a Hickey Freeman, that's talking about real quality.
Oh.
And this jacket happens to be my father's.
No.
This jacket is over 50 years old.
What would you pay for that now if it's a Hickey Freeman? Because I went down on Worth Avenue.
Yeah.
And they want, if you get a sale, it's $700.
Yeah, this would I would.
$2,000?
Yeah, it'd be something like that.
But
look at the quality.
The durability.
It's 50 years old.
I know.
And it's still. And I went down to Palm Beach last year, and I wore this,
Yeah.
and people came up and complimented me and said, "Where did you get that? You look so Palm Beach."
Oh, you know? Yeah. And it's I remember I bought a rough hewn. I was in Key West.
Yeah.
This is maybe 30 years ago. Or like I told you, I had this childhood where I was very affluent.
Right.
And I could go downtown to M. Schwartz and Company in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Yeah.
A high end.
Right.
I was the name Schwartz, probably Jewish people.
Yeah, I've heard of Schwartz.
And, I could just sign for anything I wanted.
Right.
And I remember I got this shirt.
Okay.
And it was for a whopping $110 or something.
Yeah, back then that was a lot of money.
It lasted forever. It was a Nehru shirt, white with a nice, I don't even know what to
Yeah.
Then I went down to Key West.
Right.
I don't know, for a few $100s, I bought this rough-hewn white shirt.
Yeah.
And this was as an adult. And you know what? Except for me putting a bloody pen in the pocket.
That's the danger.
It lasted for years
That's the
and
danger,
years and years. By the way, I had a jacket just like that over on the beach I bought here. Of course, Rhodes is closed now.
Yeah, I know.
Did
Rhodes.
she die?
I don't know, but Rhodes was a real nice store.
Yeah.
Real nice
and
store.
I got this really nice
Yeah.
light green, not a dark green, like a new birth green.
Yeah.
And it was my favorite jacket of all times.
Yeah. They now have a new Italian clothing store at that same location.
For men?
No, it's not. Yeah.
Pen, P-E-N. Once again, the pen ruined the jacket.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fountain pens.
This was
the so-called fountain pens. Ballpoints are safer. Fountain pens. They were known to ruin clothing.
This was a ballpoint.
Ballpoint. Okay.
So listen. So this was the name of this jacket is what?
Hickey Freeman.
Of course, I've heard of Hickey Freeman.
Yeah.
Now I got some really nice stuff up at Richards.
Okay.
Do you know where Richards is? Do you ever go to Connecticut and do you go to what's the place where all the wealthy are?
I don't know. Greenport.
No.
Greenhaven.
No, it's a fancy schmancy right out of.
Okay.
Anyway,
all
Diana
right.
Ross lives there, and all these other.
Okay.
Stars
Anyway, let's get back to
Poor Richards. That was the name of the store.
Yeah.
And he wrote a book on hugs, and that's where I met Matt Lauer. Matt Lauer came just to say hi, but he used to sell clothing there.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, before he was making $28 million a year.
So he was a haberdasher.
And you know what he was after that? He left that job. He didn't get the job at NBC at first.
Okay.
So he was a tree trimmer.
All right, haberdasher. That's a good word.
Haberdasher.
You've probably heard that before. Yeah.
Yeah, I want a jacket like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, it's not as important to me anymore. But
no.
I will say this: as soon as you came out of the car this morning, and he has a Mercedes, but it's an
old Mercedes and an old jacket.
Two of them.
Yeah, an old Mercedes and an old jacket.
It's old money.
Yeah, it's old money. That's right.
Why
Well, the point
is money so good.
The point is, if you
nouveau is
if you go for quality,
yeah.
It's worth it. That's what I'm saying. And
so people actually stopped you and said, "You look like
a Palm Beacher."
Yeah, you could say you're a famous author or something.
Yeah.
Hey, we should take your picture.
Yeah.
Right now, and we should help you publish a book.
Oh. Publish your book.
No, I should start publishing books. Okay. I get all these people on here.
All right.
And I had somebody in here yesterday, and I'm thinking of helping him do his first smile.
Yeah,
don't look at there you go. Look up. Open those eyes up. Did you ever do professional shots? They say, open your eyes, Mr. Palmer.
Yeah.
And you go like this. First of all, Garth Brooks said you lean in to get rid of this.
Yeah.
You lean in, you open up your eyes.
Yeah.
And you go like this.
Right. Okay. Anyway, so we're talking about this guy, the Secretary of Defense, and for those of you that have not been tuning into the TV or radio, he apparently had case of pancreatic, prostate cancer.
Yeah.
And he went in for treatment of it early December, 15th of December, something like that. He then came home, was, doing this over the Christmas time. It got infected, and he then had to go to the emergency room in ICU back at Walter Reed. That's
intensive care.
Walter Reed is a very good hospital. That's a military-run hospital in the Washington, D.C. area.
Yeah.
And but the problem is he was in the ICU for 4 or 5 days and never notified the White House that he was out of action. He's literally, you're in the ICU, you're not able to function. So the duties should be transferred to someone else.
Well, he finally transferred some duties to that lady.
Yeah,
she didn't know it. She was on holiday in Hawaii or something.
She was Costa Rica, or no, Puerto Rico. She was in Puerto Rico, yeah.
Didn't even know it.
Yeah.
So do you think he should be reprimanded, or do you think he should, because in that position?
And here's the other thing: he has a chief of staff who, in theory, would supposedly pass the information about this to the White House. The chief of staff was out with a cold. So
his Achilles heel is his pride as a man. He was probably embarrassed that he had prostate cancer. Do you think?
Well,
that's total conjecture on my part.
I know, and if that's the case, there should be no embarrassment whatsoever. It's a very common illness for males.
But regardless, it lowers him that he should maybe not in a position of power if he hasn't by this age. How old is he?
He's 70.
Oh, my age.
Your age, my age, yeah, exactly. So that's
really
not.
Bothers me that I see these guys that look so old that are my age.
I know. Well, he's been through a rougher.
How old do I look?
He's been through a rougher life.
I'm still 19 inside.
Yeah, he's been through a rougher life.
I'm 19.
All right. Anyway, so
how old are you, Aaron?
Rhett.
18.
18. Okay.
He's gonna be
all right.
18.
Let me give you just my opinion.
I wish I was 18 again.
Okay. I think that that there was a major fumbling of what I call the command and chain of command. When you are a top leader and you are out of commission, you have to transfer authority to somebody else while you're out. Ronald Reagan, when he got shot in the hospital, obviously, he
turned it over to that creepy guy. Remember, he said, "Well, I'm in charge."
Yeah,
remember that guy?
He didn't turn it over. Al Haig is the one that you're thinking of.
I'm in charge.
Al Haig was.
He said of his own volition.
He did that of his own volition, and he was wrong because he was not the line of command.
He got castigated. That's the one thing he's remembered for.
He is, and it's a shame because in many ways, Al Haig was a general who then was at the time he was considered to be presidential material. He could have been.
Well, let me tell you something. I know presidential material.
And
he
didn't
not presidential
have
material. Okay. Although the two people we have right now are not presidential material.
Okay. All right. So,
my God, help us.
Yeah.
Is this the best we can do?
Let's not go there.
See, this is what I don't know. I don't know if there's something wrong with me because I get my liberal friends. I mean, I like Trump. And I know that he's offensive with his tongue. And I know people don't care how much you know to than how much you care. And that's why if he lost the last election, some of us don't believe he did, but if he did, it was because of his mouth. Biden didn't win. It was that Trump lost for his big mouth. And now, the other day, he came out and talking about these immigrants, and we had to have a Spanish pastor got on who's pro-Trump. He said, look, he's going to lose the Hispanic vote if you keep saying this country is built on immigrants. Why would she say something so stupid?
Yeah, well,
yes, they should come through legally, but you don't call immigrants, with a wide brush that they're all evil and no good.
Yeah.
What is the matter with him? He's like, it's almost like he skips.
Well, the problem
that skips. He's very bright. Now, listen, if you took just business, don't you think Trump should be president?
Well, I don't think that a president should be elected based on economics. I think that politics is much broader than economics.
I don't think so anymore. I think we need. I've been saying for 10 years we need a CEO.
Yeah.
We had one with Trump. I just didn't know he would come with such baggage.
Well, you're right. And the problem is he could manage an economic portfolio reasonably well. Although he did, for what it's worth on the economic front, he did increase the national debt by somewhere around $7 trillion. But that was because of COVID. $7 trillion he added to the national debt.
COVID.
He did stimulus spending to try to offset what was called the risk of a major depression from COVID.
Yeah, and I lost 5 clients. It cost me $250,000 a year.
Yeah.
So I tell you what.
So
we all lost money during COVID, and some of us have not recovered.
Right.
Why?
Yeah. Well. Anyway, so that's an area. If you were to peel back the economic responsibility, you could say, well, he created this debt bomb that we're now looking at. We're looking at over $32 trillion of national debt, which is a serious matter. But that's a separate topic. Let's not go there today. Just to conclude on Lloyd Austin, I think that there was a major blunder, and he should not have left without reporting to his senior commander. It's not exactly.
He will be gone. You know that.
Well, I don't know. The Republicans are trying to use this as an excuse to push him out.
Is it just the Republicans?
It's mostly the Republicans.
Now, did they not like him prior to this for any reason?
I think it's just to
he seems to be a reasonable man.
I agree, and he's a competent man. And
I will tell you this. This is prejudice reversed.
Right.
I do tend to want him. He's a bright, stable, very black man, black skin. And I don't care what you say.
Yeah.
If you're Hispanic or black, particularly if you're black Hispanic.
Right.
I got to tell you something. Even in Little Vero Beach, if I was black driving around at night, I'm going to go extra slow because you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm going to be profiled.
Well, and this, unfortunately, this is where I think the Republicans may be ganging up on him subliminally because of his black background.
But the Republicans are the ones that set the Republic. You know, black people don't even know that Abraham Lincoln was Republican. Do you know that not one Democrat voted for the Emancipation Proclamation? Why don't they learn these things?
Yeah. Well, anyway,
you know who started the KKK? the Escobar. Oh, that's the Republicans. No, it was the Democrats, and they're fooling you again, Bucko.
Right.
If you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
Yeah.
Go.
But the white supremacists,
He's a liar,
the white supremacists and the neo-Nazis are leaning towards the Republicans, not towards the Democrats. The ones in the country today, the neo-Nazis, they're leaning towards the Republicans.
What would you call the far left then? Commies?
Yes, socialist commies. That would be the closest.
No, you don't believe
definition.
in communism.
When you say I don't believe in it, does it exist? Chinese are communists.
Has it ever succeeded?
Yes, China is an example. China is an example of technically.
But are the people oppressed?
Yes, they are oppressed. In fact, I want to tell you a little story because I'm glad you asked that. We're not covering China today, but I have a holiday greeting from one of my friends who is Chinese, who lives in China. And I've known him for over 40 years. And he was a very brilliant guy, and we used to have stimulating discussions, you know, like you and I have.
Have stimulating discussions with me.
Yeah. And anyway, he was an academic. And I send him Christmas greetings, and he comes back and says, well, I would love to respond to your discussions and get involved in this stuff. I even mentioned our podcast, and I said, you should listen to my podcast. And he came back and said, do you know that in China, you are not allowed to Google search for things? Google is controlled in China. You are basically restricted on the areas that you have the right to even listen to. This is total state-sponsored censorship in China,
which is what the liberals want to do here in America.
Well,
they want to muzzle everybody.
No, what I want to explain is state-sponsored censorship, and if you were to go out and speak openly about certain topics, and we know that, for example, the Tiananmen Square is one of them, you can be thrown in jail for even writing a couple of sentences about the Tiananmen Square, because the Chinese don't want it to exist. They don't want people to know.
Erase history.
Erase history.
That's why they're not teaching history in our schools in America now.
Well,
you know, the kids don't even know about the Jews and the Holocaust.
Well, I doubt that, because the Israelis are very adamant about reminding people over and over. We have a Holocaust museum in Washington, D.C. In Washington, D.C.
Are you sure?
Well, yes, there's a Holocaust museum in Washington, D.C.
Really?
Yes, there really is. Yeah.
I haven't been there. I've been to Israel, but I haven't been there.
Okay, so
I've been to Washington, but I haven't been to the Holocaust.
Right.
Have you been to the Holocaust Museum?
I have not. That was opened after I had left Washington, but I know that it was opened, and there was a lot of flap.
It ought to be mandatory that the kids from every school's group in America go through it.
Right. Well. Anyway, so my conclusion on Lloyd Austin is that was a mistake. We need to have a clear chain of command, especially when we are in dangerous times as we are today. Now, with that said, let's go to the Secretary of State Blinken visit to Israel. That's the next.
No, what about the guy though? Do you think he'll be reprimanded, or do you think?
Well, I think there will be an attempt by Republicans to try to show this as another example of weakness by Biden in his administration of.
But I will tell you this: the Democrats.
Yeah.
The Democrats. You know who's the little guy that I interviewed who used to be a senator out west? Al Franken. Remember that guy from Saturday Night Live, and he got elected as a senator?
Okay.
I interviewed him years ago. Well, he went. I don't know. He made like he was touching a girl's breast while she was sleeping on a plane. Went over to her lips like this, went like this, and he got let go for that. That was unreasonable. But anyway, so he's history. And then we found out that this guy in New York, of course, I believe this was the hand of God. When Cuomo said, when the numbers went down of COVID, he said, God didn't do it. Prayer didn't do it. We did it. And the moment I was at my house, I said,
right.
You have lost. You're not going to be the governor-in-law. I know my father's hand. And sure enough, within 2 months, not only the conservatives, but the Democrats, you're out, bucko.
Right.
For other reasons, so they thought.
Yeah. Well, I haven't followed Cuomo that closely, but I do think that that Austin should, in my view, he should remain in office right now. We don't need the term.
How about the president of Harvard?
I'm glad she was removed from her position because of her exposure of plagiarism, not because of what she said about the genocide.
Okay, we know that our current president plagiarized back in school. I mean, he had a bunch of people coming against him. Is plagiarism that bad? I mean, first of all, I have a book that says "Steal This Art." I am an artist.
Yeah.
Now, I've always felt very uncomfortable and guilty about, the differentiating inspiration and theft. And this book is it's Steal This Art. And the guy, ironically, the guy only charged like $5.95 or $6.95.
Right.
He sold millions. He became rich off of this book. But it really sets it up. He's an artist that says it's okay to borrow. So now let's say you do a great picture of balloons and a lady walking down the street. I go, I'm inspired. Because Bob Dylan said, art is not art when you buy it. Art is art when you inspire it. One of my greatest inspirations in my life has been Bob Dylan.
Right.
So, and I didn't buy any of his artwork. I can't afford it probably.
Right. Well, Bob Dylan, I'm sure, would support the idea of musical copyrights and the fact that somebody shouldn't be singing your song without paying you royalties. Okay.
He said, I make a lot of money and I pay, and Rolling Stones, and I pay a lot of it out to the people to watch over it.
Exactly. So that's
when
where
you're that rich, you have to hire somebody to watch over who you have hired to watch over the guys who are running your money.
Anyway, so that's the distinction of copywriting, and copywriting has a legitimacy because if you remove the protection of copyright, then you are essentially robbing the people that are the creators of this stuff.
Just like me, my song for Call Me Mrs. Miracle.
Yeah.
We checked into why am I not getting domestic checks? And now they found out, well, some guy named Rhett Palmer, that's my name in case you know, Rhett Palmer, he died in the 1940s, and he's the guy that wrote that song. Yeah. Have a very Merry Christmas. I wrote that song. Excuse me. And so, anyway, they're trying to say that I wrote it back in the 40s. You know why? Because then it
becomes expired. The copyright is expired.
To me, it becomes public domain, and it's much harder to fight public domain.
Right, by showing that it was written in the 1940s instead of in the 1980s or whatever.
And the guy's dead.
Yeah. So
you can only keep a copyright for 48 years. I think
anyway. So the issue of plagiarism is essentially using other people's writings and putting them into your own document without attributing them as the source of that material.
What if you change a few words? I don't know.
Well, that's similar to in the medical field, in the biomedical field, where they will change a few chemical compounds in a drug and then say that it's exempt from the patent protection. Yeah. That's a big deal, to change it.
So like Disney, Mickey Mouse became the original Mickey Mouse now. You can print it. I can make shirts on it, T-shirts, anything I want.
You can.
As of the 2024?
That's right, because it's so. So anyway, just to go back to the plagiarism.
Pardon me?
Next month is February 24.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, to go back to the issue of plagiarism, I'm against plagiarism. I think it's important to attribute where you got your sources. As an academic, especially, it's important to show where your sources, who your sources are, to prove the academic validity of what you're saying.
Now, a little aside here.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time at libraries and bookstores.
Yeah, right.
So I was at Barnes & Noble, and I picked up I wasn't. I was at Books A Million, up in Vieira. And I tried to get in touch with this author. He's a professor. He's written a book. It's this thick.
Okay.
Like 700-800 pages, all about the flyers of World War II, the pilots.
Okay, pilots, yeah.
It's very good, but he pulls your rating because he's. But here's what I want to know is, And you would think I would already know the answer to this. I don't know. It's got to be conjecture. You don't know what, Billy Bob said, oh, we ran out of toilet paper today. How do you know back in 1945 the guy ran out of toilet paper that morning, and that's why he went over and robbed the bank of their toilet paper? So whatever.
Well, that's called a
poetic
kind
license.
of like a narrative history, and
Yeah, but see, I'm a literalist.
Yeah.
That's why I have to be careful because
right.
I've always taken things literally.
Yeah, and to be honest,
like people in the Bible says, if your eye offends you, pluck it out.
Right.
There have been people that have plucked out their eye. They're literalists.
Exactly.
Whereas I don't think Jesus said he really wanted people plucking out their eye. And there are people that will contest that right now that are watching this.
Yeah. Anyway, the issue is for an academic is to document what he or she is saying by providing evidence from what I call legitimate sources, and that's usually other academics or people that are experts on a field.
Yeah.
We do have a concept called experts.
How do you write
and expert knowledge?
A 700-page book without spending a lifetime doing it.
But anyway, so going to Miss Gay or Dr. Gay.
Dr. Gay.
Dr. Gay.
Heck of a name to have in this day and age.
Yeah, she was picked presumably. Gay? I don't know. She was picked presumably.
Kind of butch, with that short haircut.
She was picked as presumably as a signal that Harvard was woke. Those of you in the audience know what woke is.
Do you know what woke is? Can anybody define it?
Woke is a concept of what I call extreme liberalism. Where certain
they want to control people, so you can't, like this posting things on Facebook. People should not be muzzled, And they're saying, well, that's a private enterprise,
right? And
they're nasty.
And believe it or not, there are conservative movements out there that are essentially with billion-dollar funding. One of them is called the Marble Freedom. That's a dark money fund that is being organized and has over $1 billion on the right wing. It is essentially targeting wokeism as a threat, and it's pushing for conservative values with the main goal, anything that is considered woke, they are against, and they are running campaigns against it.
I want to know this, and this is a good question, whether you are left or not.
Yeah.
Why is it that every professor I know is a lefty?
That's not true, but there are
by and large
there are a number of them. I should throw out one more bit of news for those of the audience that's not following some of this stuff closely. Just in the last few days, there was a camera video covering a demonstration going on in Italy, and this was like thousands of people.
Yeah, and
they were all doing a fascist salute, all in unison, with their hand raised up, doing a fascist salute, and something. It wasn't a Sieg Heil, of course, because that's the Germans, but for the fascists, they had the same type of fascist salute.
Why would they do that?
Well, because fascism is growing in Italy. As I mentioned on our show before, Miss Marconi, who is the prime minister of Italy, herself is a proto-fascist. And on her team, one of her top leaders that she worked with, her party is called the Brothers of Italy. They are one of her members is actually a avowed fascist of the Mussolini brand.
Okay, but let's define fascist too, because do fascists, are they anti-Jews and pro-Palestinian?
That's a good question. It's a good question when you talk about right-wing supremacists in general. They are anti-Jewish.
They're also anti-black, aren't they?
They're anti-black and they're anti-Jewish. That's why they're called.
This famous singer, though.
Yeah, they're groups called the Sons of Odin, for example. That's one of these right-wing supremacy groups. Odin is a god, pre-Christian god of Sweden and of Norway, of that whole area. And these. There are movements. Some of this right-wing extremism is being driven in Europe by the migration problems. There are lots of migrants. Many of them are coming over from Africa.
Yeah.
As we know, they're coming over to Lampedusa and then over from there through Italy up into Germany and all over Europe. And we're talking about large-scale immigrants. And many of these countries now are starting to support right-wing and right-wingism because it is against this flood of immigrants, and especially of people from Middle East and African origins. So you're...
Yeah.
Are they illegal immigrants or are they legal?
Most of them are illegal immigrants. That's the reality. Many of them are claiming, of course, asylum, political asylum. This is kind of a window the size of the Brooklyn Bridge that is being used as a way for illegal immigrants to say, well, I'm not really illegal, I'm seeking asylum. Okay, so we do need, not just in the United States, but all over the world, we need to get a handle on this whole issue of asylum and what it is and how it should be handled. I have sympathy for people who are being politically persecuted in their own country. There are some countries where, for example, if you are a homosexual, you will be killed, and therefore, do you have the right to flee that country because you would have?
I should hope so.
On the other hand,
and then you've got these gays, queers for Palestine.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's not go. But I don't want to go there. Let's stick on the topic. So the issue is, you do have some legitimate grounds for people claiming asylum, but the testing of who should be given asylum and where they should be given asylum, that's a big issue. A lot of these people that flee from Africa, from Morocco and Libya and places across into Italy, they don't stay in Italy or Greece. Mm-hmm. They then want to migrate on into other parts of Europe, which are more fruitful, and they have better jobs, and they have so they're not actually fleeing just to find a safe haven for the period until the times change. They're looking at economic migration, and there's a big difference between economic migration and asylum seeking. That's the difference.
Yeah.
So,
economic. I'll write that down. Hold
economic migration.
Migration
versus asylum seeking.
Versus asylum.
Asylum or asylum seeking. Yeah. So anyway,
yeah.
With our modern technology and AI and all that kind of stuff that's out there, we ought to be able, in the near future, to tackle processing of these people, where they could fairly quickly be adjudicated. Maybe we could have, I don't want to get that far into the weeds, but have an AI judge where the artificial intelligence has a set of questions and a set of calculations about whether somebody is qualified or not qualified, and that could be used as an initial screening process to reject or accept some of these people. And essentially, illegal migrants should not be in this country and should not be in Europe. They are illegal unless they have a legitimate grounds for coming here. Either they've been given,
So you're not pro this opening of the gates down there?
No, I think this is a terrible thing. And it's
when Clinton was president, he was not pro that.
Well,
there was Bush. I mean,
I know.
Why is this guy allowing everybody to come in?
It's incompetence. And in fact, the reality for Biden is it's incompetence.
You can't just shut it down?
And I do understand, as I've said before on the show, I understand the Republicans tying the funding for better border security to the funding for the Ukraine and Israel requests. This is actually pending right now. It's back on the.
Why do we think that we're in our arrogance that we have to babysit the world?
Well,
I mean, we give more than any other country.
Well, believe it or not, I'm going to drift over to Israel now because it's an important topic and we need to get onto it. But we gave more money to Israel than we gave for the entire reconstruction of Europe after World War II. As of
how much is that?
$124 billion has been given to Israel. Now, keep in mind, Israel only has today 7 million Jews and seven non.
How much have we given Ukraine so far?
I think we've given Ukraine maybe 40 billion. I'm not sure. I'm not totally sure what the numbers are for Ukraine. But
I was told this though. We've
Yeah.
given Ukraine enough that if we had kept that money, we could give every veteran of war that's alive in America today $2 million.
Yes, but the reality,
Not that we should ever do that, but there really shouldn't be a homeless veteran.
I understand.
I believe do you agree with me? I think all veterans, their children should not have to pay for education.
Well, I agree with both those points.
Their lives, they wrote a blank check.
I agree with both those points. On the other hand, and many of those veterans are homeless because they are war traumatized. They have PSTD. This is a problem.
Into some of them.
Yeah, and the problem with that is what I call wars, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Wars. What Biden is in the Middle East for today is to try to contain the situation that's now going on. It's called the Gaza Hamas war with Israel, or the war between Israel and Hamas. It is a brutal, terrible conflict. Yes, Israeli volunteers, these are draftees, or people that are out of jobs and schools that are called in as reservists. That are called in as reservists. Okay, they're called in as reservists.
Got to have at least one handsome face on the show.
Okay. Anyway, these people that are being called in as reservists, they are being put through horrible situations. That's saying that from the Israeli side. I do want to mention, as some people have criticized me for not saying this enough, about the hostages. The hostages, there are only 130 of them, but still, what they're going through is terrible. So we need to understand that as part of it. But what Israel is doing in trying to, quote, free the hostages and to kill the Hamas members is, in my view, both disproportionate and ineffective. It's not working. And the problem with the continuation of this, we're now into the 4th month of this so-called war. Keep in mind, it's a war of the occupier, Israel, against the occupied, the Gazans. And they are not even allowed to leave Gaza. They can't even flee. And it's a small area. And there have been over 22,000 civilians killed in this 3-month period. And that's over 10,000 children killed. And the ongoing actions by Israel includes a continued embargo of food and water and medicine into the area. They claim, we're going to let more trucks in. Blinken's over there. Part of his mission is to allow more humanitarian aid into Gaza. Well, the fact is there are only 130 trucks a day coming across, very little. And Israel has not stopped the bombing, so you can't get the trucks very far without them being bombed or the roads being destroyed to prevent them from delivering aid.
Well, why don't these Muslim countries that surround them send food in?
They have. They've sent it, but it's sitting out there at the Rafah border. They can't get it across from Egypt. They're sending it. What I think needs to be done, to be honest, and I on the food aid issue and the...
I wouldn't say to be honest.
Okay.
You just said what I think should be
done. What I think should be done. Yeah.
Hopefully you're an honest guy all the time.
Okay, yeah. What I think should be done is the U.S. should basically send over some aircraft and airlift and drop out of the airplanes food and aid into Gaza and dare the Israelis to shoot our planes down out of the sky. I know they aren't. If we did that, that's one way of getting the food aid in. We're sitting there. Unfortunately, Blinken is over there, bowing and kowtowing to various people around the Middle East.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
These Palestinian people that live in Gaza.
Right.
They elected Hamas.
Okay,
you sow into the wind, you reap the whirlwind.
Okay, that's like saying, right now we are pushing, the United States position is to push for the Palestinian Authority to take over after this war is over. Now,
and who are they?
The Palestinian Authority is Mahmoud Abbas. For those of you following this topic, Mahmoud Abbas has been the leader of the Palestinian Authority since about the last 25 years.
Why not? Okay, this is the other side.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say I'm a Jew. I say, we're going to take the spoils. We're going to wipe you out like you wanted to wipe us out. Screw you, get the hell out of our land, and we're taking over Gaza. Go somewhere else, but you're not going to live here. And you wanted to purge us? Well, guess who's going to be purged? It's just like in the Bible. They set up those guillotines for the good people.
Yeah.
And it turned around, the bad guys ended up on their own guillotines.
All right.
So you know what? They wanted this.
Okay. Well,
bye.
Well, actually, you're jumping into the second topic of our discussion.
The day after in Gaza.
Yeah.
The defense minister of Israel, Gallant, has announced a draft plan that would include Israel military continued presence in Gaza after the war, but would allow the U.S. and other international groups to help rebuild the smashed territory. Running the new Gaza Strip government would be some undefined Palestine group, but not including Hamas and likely not Palestine Authority. Would his plan work?
Right. Well,
I tell you what. When they thought that Hamas. When they gave up the Gaza, let's go back a few years. Do you see the video? Was what 2002 or 2005?
2005. When they withdrew, 2005.
I have to give up my farm.
The Palestinian,
to the Hamas.
Yes, I understand that.
Under the
2005 agreement, Gaza was turned back over to the Palestinians, and the Israelis withdrew. And as part of that withdrawal, it also required the settlers who had been there to withdraw. Okay? So anyway, after the break, we'll talk more about this the day after in Gaza, because that's important.
What will take place the day after in Gaza?
Yeah, after the war is over. Yeah.
Now, I want to know this. This is my most concern. Yeah. Let's pretend that I'm a Palestinian. Yeah. I live in the Gaza Strip.
Right.
You killed my children were killed. And I have 2 sons. My sons will never forget, and they're going to want retribution towards the Jews.
Yeah.
There won't be any peace. There's no way to have peace.
All right, let's leave that for after the break.
That. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay.
We got to take a break. We'll be back, ladies and gentlemen. We are on, and we are live. And with former U.S. diplomat David Hunter, who was a diplomat in Pakistan, South Korea, Spain, South Korea, India, and who?
Ukraine.
Did I not say Ukraine? Ukraine, Pakistan, and Ukraine. Pakistan, Ukraine, South Korea, Spain, and India.
Right. Yeah.
It only has taken me 7 years to learn that. They used to call me there were some nasty people in this town years ago.
Yeah.
And when you first could post things without a name, and there were 2 people in town who called me the moron of the airwaves.
Not the mayor.
I'm known as the mayor of the airwaves, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
The moron of the airwaves.
Yeah. All right.
So anyway, so we got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were in the middle of the day after.
The day after, and that means what's going to happen when this conflict, this war ends. Of course, the people are devastated. I mean, they just seem to do this, just thinking doesn't matter. I mean, how many billions will it take to rebuild? At least they're all going to have new apartment buildings.
Well, the question you said earlier when you were before the break was, why doesn't Israel just throw these people out or get rid of them? They've been such a thorn in the side of Israel for this length of time.
And ironically, though, it is biblical that God told Saul to go and kill the Amalekites. Let me finish. Kill the Amalekites, lest they be a thorn in the side to Israel forever. He disobeyed God.
Yeah.
And brought back, women and children, and brought back the king, and Samuel had to kill the king, and it's kind of crazy. But look what's happened.
All right. Well,
a thorn in the side.
I did promise to check with one of my relatives, who is a elder in the Baptist Church, and ask about this whole question of the Amalekites and the what's called genocide intended genocide of the Amalekites by King Saul. And how that could be justified under what you call a just God in the biblical sense. And his response, very well thought out and an analyzed response, was essentially that this is a case of God wanting to eradicate evil. And this was the biblical justification. So it wasn't technically genocide. It was a question of justice against evil as the explanation for it. Now, that's a difficult one, and I'm still not comfortable with that, and especially when you apply it to modern day and define, somebody's evil, and therefore I have the right to wipe them out. who's the one to make this decision? In that case, going back to the Bible, it was God that apparently made the decision, if you believe Samuel. But in modern day, the question of one country deciding to wipe out another country or another people within that country, just like Hitler was planning to wipe out the Jews, that was considered genocide. That wasn't considered to be God justified. So now
we've got the Pakistans who also they want to annihilate the
Palestinians
from river to sea.
The Palestinians.
Get rid of the Jews.
Well, technically, the river to sea should be interpreted as removing Jews from the land that they stole from the Palestinians. That's the concept of. It doesn't mean necessarily.
But Palestinian. You used that word. Who came up with the word Palestinian?
Okay. Anyway,
it was used as a comedic thing.
No,
to cajole.
It was called the Palestine, and you had some Jews living there and some Palestinians living there.
Jews used to be called Palestinians.
Well, people that lived in Palestine were called Palestinians. People in America are called Americans. If you're a Jew and you live in America, you're still an American. You're not a Jew living in America. Okay.
Right. I'm not an Irishman living in America.
You're an American.
I'm born and bred here.
Yeah, exactly.
Give me my bread and cheese.
Right, exactly.
Maybe a beer.
So anyway, going back to your comment before the break about, why don't the Jews of Israel just get rid of the Palestinians? That actually is being proposed. As recently as in the last week or two, the Prime Minister Netanyahu has advocated for what's called voluntary migration.
What's that mean?
That voluntary migration means if the Palestinians want to leave Palestine, and especially if the Gazans want to leave Gaza, then we will allow them to leave and we will help them to resettle. And in fact, the extreme right-wing leader Smotrich, who's one of the what you call the settler ministers, he came from the settlement community on the West Bank. He has essentially proposed now setting up new Israeli settlements in Gaza. Israeli settlements, just like you're having over in the West Bank. He wants to set up Israeli settlements in Gaza, where they had withdrawn before the 2005.
Would somebody make up my mind?
Yeah, and the Netanyahu, in a factional meeting, actually talked about finding other countries to accept the Palestinians. Reportedly, this is according to the Washington Post, Congo was one of the countries that has been contacted, Congo in Africa, has been contacted by the Israelis as a place that might be willing to...
And I understand the governor of Texas is going to fly the plane.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on?
Yeah, well...
I wonder what I said that booted us off YouTube. But they're saying now it may have been electronic. By the way, are we back on YouTube? We are. We're back on YouTube.
Okay, good. All right.
We love you, YouTube. Don't YouTube.
Yeah. All right.
I'm just starting to cultivate a following on this thing, and gosh,
anyway, we
can change the name though, can't we?
Yeah.
What is our YouTube account? Is it Vero's Voice or Rhett Palmer? I hope it's Rhett Palmer.
Rhett Palmer.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Time to get back to Rhett Palmer.
Anyway,
enough of this Vero's Voice stuff.
This alleged report that the Israelis, including Netanyahu, are looking at countries like the Congo as places to send the Palestinians.
It's kind of like the bad guys that were going to be hung in England. Long time ago in a distant land. Can you say, well, sir, Mr. Palmer, you can either go to the prison and we're going to chop off your head, or we're going to put you on this boat. And I don't know why they did this, but you're going to go to a place called Australia. Can you imagine getting off the boat and going, this is your prison? I might. Let's have some shrimp on the barbie. Can you imagine?
Well, they also sent them to Georgia in America.
Georgia
the state was a prison colony.
No.
Yes, it was. It was.
But was also a prison colony during
for the Brits.
The Civil War.
No, but I'm saying this is back in the days of the British colonials. That's how Georgia was settled by prisoners, from
Are you
Britain.
glad you're alive in this day and age as opposed to back then?
Well, maybe, but we have some discussion about what's going to happen in the future, and that's something I want to mention. Let me just go back to this.
It's also volatile and inflammatory.
Let me go back to
everybody's pointing fingers
to this issue of voluntary migration. If you destroy every standing building in Gaza and you prohibit food and water from coming in, and then these Gazans decide, I want to get out of here, that's not voluntary migration. That's forced migration. You made the conditions so terrible inside Gaza that they are leaving, not on a voluntary basis, but because of inhospitable conditions inside the country. So that's a false interpretation to say that's voluntary migration. By the way, the U.S. government, including Blinken, who's in Israel as of yesterday, he has made clear that the U.S. is against a displacement from Gaza of the 2.3 million Palestinians. He's against that. He says they should not be forced out of Gaza, and he also has said that he is in favor of the U.S. position is still in favor of a two-state solution, meaning that Gaza and the West Bank will become a Palestinian state. Now, that, of course, is something the Israelis are very much against. They don't like the idea of a state. You mentioned before.
I just want to stop for a second. I'm having problems with my back, so I'm going to ask you guys to either tell us to adjust the camera, or can you adjust it? Can you bring this up? Get rid of my belly and just show my head here, because I'm going to try standing.
Try standing, yeah.
If my 97-year-old friend can do it, he goes into work every day.
And stands?
And stands.
Okay.
He's got that special desk that lifts up his computer and everything.
Yeah, a lot of people use that, yeah.
That guy, David Walsh, is so forgive me, folks. Yeah, that's looking better. Thank you. Sorry about that.
So anyway.
I apologize for the interruption.
The issue of the U.S. taking the position of a two-state solution, Israel not liking that. One of the terms that one Israeli mentioned was, I'm not sure if this was in response to Blinken, but he said, we're not the 51st star in America's flag.
Who said this now?
An Israeli. An Israeli did, yeah. We're not the 51st star in the American flag, meaning we are an independent, sovereign country, and we're not going to have the Americans tell us what to do.
Well, that's funny, because right in the center of Jerusalem is USA. Did you ever notice that?
Yeah. Well, anyway,
he should be so blessed to be a state of the United States.
Yeah. Well,
that's a great way to protect the Jews. Say, hey, guess what? It's now our territory, boys.
All right. Well, anyway,
we're coming in with the cavalry.
Anyway, the issue from Netanyahu's point of view, because Blinken is essentially saying, let's get food aid in and let's reduce the amount of carnage and killing. Unfortunately, while Blinken was in Israel and in the several days before he arrived in Israel, the death rate was at 250 Palestinians a day being killed. The bombing is continuing. Bombing, and even the Al-Aqsa hospital was attacked with a drone strike that hit the maternity ward and the ICU.
But is there any way of having like a surgeon's knife when you're at war? You can't.
Yes, there is, and of course that's what the United States has been arguing for over a number of months, and has not sufficiently forced Israel to
isn't
accept.
This guy Netanyahu at least?
Israel should be
acquiescing somewhat or something.
Exactly, and what it's doing, in fact, is Blinken is there saying let's calm things down. Netanyahu is doing the exact opposite. Yeah. He's basically tweaking Blinken's nose.
There's part of me that agrees with that he should calm down, and then there's part of me that agrees with Netanyahu in that they did this at the very beginning. We said we're going to go in. They wanted to annihilate us. Now we're going to annihilate them. We will be relentless. Not the Palestinians, but the Hamas.
Yeah.
Hamas. It's going to go.
But you see, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like if there were five.
And it's not vindictiveness.
Imagine
it's not vengeance.
Imagine
this is life or death.
Keep in mind that the number of people that have innocent Palestinians that have died now is the equivalent of 7 World Trade Towers collapsing. 7.
Yeah, 20. Because we had 3,000, right?
Yes. 7 times 3 is 21,000. So that's like 7 World Trade Centers collapsing and all those people being killed.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. This is mass slaughter. Yeah. There is claims, as I said, by some that this is an intentional genocide. Journalists, over 70 to 80 journalists have been killed, including the Al Jazeera's chief of Gaza, his son was killed this last weekend. Okay, there's apparently intentional. This is what is suspected: intentional targeting of journalists, especially the journalists in Gaza, by the Israelis as a way of preventing the world from seeing what's going on inside there. Now, this is a serious charge to think that they are actually targeting journalists to try to keep us in the dark, us outside of their in the dark as to what is happening. So these are improper by any matter of what I call behavior. So the day after in Gaza is going to, as you said, require billions of dollars of foreign aid if Israel actually accepts to withdraw and allow the Palestinians to rule themselves in Gaza again. And that is going to involve a massive amount of money. Is Israel going to pay for this reconstruction? There's estimates that this cost is already in the range of $40 to $50 billion of destruction.
About equivalent. Oh, yeah. But so in other words, we'd have to
Who's going to pay $50 billion to rebuild all this area?
Biden's got it. He'll print some more.
No, that would be America. And the issue, one of the final issues I want to mention here is in terms of the risk of escalation with what Israel's doing. I'm in favor of Israel immediately moving to a ceasefire, calling it a day, and doing some sort of small targeted mop-up.
I see what you're doing. We're in an age, let's go. I think this is good. We're in an age of inflammation. In other words, whatever you think of Donald Trump, he's inflammatory.
Mm-hmm.
Now, remember how radical it was? Do you remember the guy that was running for the presidency and he was a Democrat? I don't know, 15 years ago, whatever, and he went, "Come on, we can do this, blah, blah, blah." The next day, they kicked him out. Remember that guy who was running for the president of the United States who was a Democrat?
No.
Then we got 15 years later, 20 years later, we got Donald Trump. And he coined the phrase fake news. And then guess what? Everybody resisted it first. Fake news, fake news. Now, the left, the right, and everybody in between, we all know there is fake news. There's fake news. I mean, whether it's Fox, not being completely straight, or CNN not being completely straight, we all know now. So whatever Donald Trump did, he inflamed a lot of things, right?
Well,
he got people talking. He set the field on fire, and the stuff that's flying out of that field is like wacko. Now we got this inflamed situation in Israel. Now the Bible says, "Behold, when all eyes are on Israel, the end of a time is near." Okay, and all eyes are on Israel, but that's happened a lot in the past 40 years. But so now you're right. This is inflammatory because now you've got Iran, and they're going, well, they're getting their bravado all over, and then they get bombed by ISIS.
Well,
this is craziness.
Well, there is some suspicions that Israel might have been behind that bombing, and
They're going to say that, but why would ISIS come forward and say we did it?
Yeah,
why would they want the credit?
Was
there a funeral going on? Oh no, I mean the anniversary.
This was the 4th anniversary of the United States, killing of Soleimani.
Yes,
now,
Soleimani.
It would have made a lot more sense.
Why did that
It would have made a lot more sense for Israel to have done that bombing of the gathering. As a way of sort of snubbing Iran and saying, Soleimani and all you guys, you should know that we are...
And even if ISIS did do it, to be mum on it, shut up and let everybody think it was, because that would be even more inflammatory.
Right. So
why would they come forward and say they did it?
I know. But
I have no idea the motivations going on.
But let's go back to...
You know what the bad news is?
Yeah.
There's so much money in this world. People have no idea the amount of money there is.
Yeah.
Hey, you're going to head up Hamas. We're going to pay you. You're going to be set for life. But we want you to start this war over here and do this. They're all puppets. I mean, people are seduced. You see
right.
Now, have you not? You and I have lived long enough now to know.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a friend who wasn't successful? Then they became successful beyond their wildest dreams. Look at Bezos, the guy from
Jeff Bezos.
I mean, I think he probably was just a good kid. I mean, he was a good kid, flipped burgers and stuff, and now it's like, cock-a-doodle-doo with the feathers. And now we've got this guy who started, what's it called, Bill Gates. Suddenly he knows better than I'm a multi-billionaire and I know what's best for America. Nobody should own land. And nobody should eat meat. We're going to eat vegetable burgers.
And Elon Musk and all of these billionaires, the reality is...
Musk isn't trying to control anybody.
The reality is a lot of people that are billionaires think that they know better and that they therefore should have more votes than the average American. So a billionaire comes in and gives his billions for political influence, and the average person doesn't have that amount of weight. Let's put it that way. Okay.
Well, I want to be a billionaire. Tease me up some Donald Trump hair. I want to be a billionaire. Yee. Riding in my big stretch limousine, all my old friends stopping staring at me. I want to be a billionaire. I'll own banks 3 and 4, and I'll throw dollars to the poor. Old friends will say, life just ain't fair. I'm gonna be a billionaire. Tease me up some Donald Trump hair. I'm gonna be a billionaire. Every week take a tropical cruise, and I don't care if I gamble and lose. I wanna be a billionaire.
All right. Well, let me get on to the consequence of this war continuing. That's the last thing that we have time for today. The consequence of the war continuing, especially, is the risk of an escalation. That's one of the things Blinken is over there trying to tamp down the risk of escalation.
Not good.
But as I said, while he's doing this, the Netanyahu government is increasing the tension. Now, you mentioned this bombing of the funeral anniversary of the Iranians.
Yeah, what was that all about?
Yeah, well, but I want to mention something else.
ISIS.
At the same time, there was last week there was a bombing of a senior Hamas leader in Beirut, Lebanon.
Yeah.
He was in a apartment building with other Hamas people.
Was that a drone again?
That was apparently a drone. But that's in the middle of a large residential area in the middle of Beirut. Now, Beirut is in Lebanon, and Lebanon is heavily controlled by Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Hezbollah. Now,
which is the equivalent of Hamas, right?
Hezbollah is the equivalent of Hamas, and it's equivalent of Al-Quds force. It is what they call a paramilitary force.
Paramilitary.
But paramilitary that is actually more powerful than the actual military. Yeah. Okay, in Lebanon, the Hezbollah has over 100,000 rockets. It's got a very well-trained military. It is a major threat to Israel. If they were to fight a war, as they did previously, Israel did not defeat them, and in fact, they called a truce. What Israel is doing right now, and this is partly Netanyahu, is he is provoking that attack on taking out this Hamas leader in Beirut, Lebanon was bad in the sense that it was provocative because you're thumbing your finger at the Hezbollah and saying, well, look, I'm going to take out these Hamas leaders right in the middle of your controlled area in your own country. It's a violation of sovereignty in a sense. Lebanon is a separate country. It has its own territory. So invading and sending a strike force to kill, quote, Hamas terrorists is a violation of sovereignty. Now, that's also called a targeted killing. Israel has had a lot of experience at targeted killings. They actually had a team called the Wrath of God that was used after the Olympic killings. Back in those days. They had something.
But we didn't have drones then.
No, we didn't. And they had what's called the Wrath of God team, which was an assassination team to take out what's called the September group that was the terrorists that had attacked the Israeli members of the the Olympics. So Israel's had a long history
which is reprehensible because the Olympics.
Of course, it's
to bring everybody.
Of course, it is. That was a horrible thing. Israel, as I said, has had a long history of what's called extrajudicial assassinations. Now, when I say extrajudicial, that means there's no trial. These people are designated as terrorists, and therefore we are going after you. Israel and Netanyahu said anyone who's in the Hamas command is now designated as a terrorist, and we will kill you wherever you are. Now, the problem with that is you've got this going on in countries Hamas is scattered around, and so they're attacking in countries outside of Israel, which constitutes a violation of the sovereignty of those countries. And recently, in the last few days, Israel has also attacked Hezbollah. Hezbollah being the Lebanese military. They attacked and killed a senior commander of Hezbollah. And this, of course, is challenging Hezbollah. What are you going to do? We're killing your leaders in your own country, and we're right next door. So Netanyahu is provoking Hezbollah to accelerate or expand the conflict. Now, that's dangerous because if you have a Hezbollah war with Israel, right now Israel is ordering hospitals in the north to start preparing for casualties, meaning they're preparing 10,000 casualties for the hospitals in North Israel because they're assuming that there could be a war breaking out any day now. So we need to pressure Israel to cool things down. That's what we need to do. We do not want a war. The United States said, it's here in this newspaper I brought in from the New York Times. They said if Lebanon, Hezbollah, attacks Israel, the United States will come to the aid of Israel. But if Israel attacks Hezbollah, the United States is out of it.
So they have to wait to be attacked? Why?
Well, what I'm saying is that they are provoking Hezbollah, hoping that Hezbollah will then accelerate and expand the conflict. That way, Netanyahu can bring the United States in as an ally and help fight Hezbollah. But unfortunately, why does Israel want to fight a war with Hezbollah? Because Netanyahu needs a long war to stay in office. If the war ends...
No, hold on a second. This is conjecture on your part.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We don't know. We don't know. We can say this. You can surmise this. To say it's fact, it's like, oh, well, you're drinking coffee because you want to impress me that you like finer coffees.
Yeah.
No, Rhett, I didn't even think about that. You ever have somebody accuse you of something of that wasn't my intent at all?
Okay.
You can't see your face.
Okay. Well, most of the political analysts.
We've got to get as many female viewers as we can. You got this handsome face here we want to see, right?
You know, most political analysts say that when the war is over, there will be a tension immediately to electing someone else. Netanyahu is very unpopular in Israel. The polls are very unpopular.
We had a hero in Britain.
Who?
His name was the only what did he say?
Churchill?
Yeah, Churchill. Never. In the course of history, so few done so much for so many. Okay. As soon as the war was over, they get rid of their hero. They don't re-elect a guy.
Yeah, well, believe me, that's a wrong equivalence with Netanyahu. Netanyahu was unpopular before the war. The war brought about a government of national unity.
He got re-elected, though. How did he manage that? So he must have been popular enough to get elected.
Well, actually, the way he got elected was by bringing in a coalition of far-right leaders, Smotrich and Ben Gvir. That was the only group that was left that he could form a coalition with, his Likud party. So it wasn't that he was popular. That he had to form a coalition with these extreme rightists who now are pretty much pushing Israel further and further to the right. That's the problem. That's the problem I have with our continued unlimited support for Israel. Israel is not the Israel of your mom and dad. Israel is not, the Israel of Moshe Dayan. This is a new Israel of the far right.
We got to wrap it up for today. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Now, we have cured the world's ills. Then you can make a donation to us in the name of peace. We're looking for 10 donors at $500,000 each today to keep us on the air. So do that for us. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Peace and prosperity.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Good discussion.